a crime lord of the underworld, internationally wanted and behind a criminal network spanning Europe, was arrested by British police in the middle of London. Not during a chase, no gunfire, and no chaos. When the vehicle was stopped, the man stepped out calmly, as if he knew that sooner or later this moment would come. For 3 years, this crime boss completely disappeared from the radar of law enforcement agencies. During that time, a court in France sentenced him in absentia to 10 years in prison, identifying him as the central figure in an organized crime network operating across multiple countries. But in London, the notorious boss's escape came to an end. In the underworld, he was not known by his real name, only by a single name: Patron. That crime boss was Ion Gusan, but in the underworld that name was rarely mentioned. Those who knew him, and those who were hunting him, all called him by a different title: Niku Patron. Patron was not a nickname chosen for effect. Within the structure of Eastern European criminal networks, it is the term used for the person who makes the final decisions, someone who does not act directly, but from whom every order originates. A patron does not need to appear frequently, because their power lies in control, not in visibility. Ion Gusan was also associated with a rarer designation, Hôtes in lege, roughly understood as one who lives by the law of the underworld. This is not a self-proclaimed title, but a status recognized only by those within the criminal world itself. It is reserved for individuals with far-reaching influence, capable of maintaining order, resolving conflicts, and preserving the balance of power within the underworld network. For that reason, Gusan had no need for guns or displays of violence. His power came from an invisible empire. In the European underworld, the Patron is not a gang in the conventional sense. It is how investigators describe a network that operates quietly, without flaunting territory, without being tied to a fixed location, yet present in multiple countries at the same time. At the top of that structure was Ion Gusan. He did not appear in minor transactions, nor did he directly oversee each specific action. Gusan's role lay in coordination and control, allowing the system to operate on its own according to principles that had already been established. In this model, the less visible the presence, the greater the power. According to investigative files, the Patron network was involved in a wide range of criminal activities, with each area clearly compartmentalized to limit risk. These included goods smuggling, organized extortion, as money laundering through complex financial structures, and the organization of illegal immigration via multiple routes across Europe. What made the Patron distinctive was not only its scope of operations, but the way it was connected. The network was believed to have links with Russian and Eastern European criminal groups, forming an underground ecosystem in which interests were shared and conflicts were handled internally. This allowed the organization to endure without the need for overt displays of violence. And when an organization can operate smoothly across multiple countries at once, sooner or later, it comes into contact with the law. For the first time, Ion Gusan was placed in a position with no way back in Romania. After many years of quiet investigation, authorities believed they had reached the center of a criminal network that had previously existed only as scattered names in case files. When Gusan was arrested, the message sent was clear. Patron had been dragged into the light. A heavy sentence was handed down, and for the public, it appeared to be the closing moment of a figure once thought untouchable. For a few brief days, the story seemed to have an ending, but inside the legal system, a different movement was unfolding. Lawyers began to re-examine every detail. Points that seemed minor in the investigative process gradually became the focus of dispute. Not because Gusan was innocent, but because the way evidence had been collected and used did not fully meet legal standards. Then the verdict was overturned. There were no cheers, no declarations of victory, only a cold decision in the courtroom and the prison door opening. Ion Gusan walked out, without looking back. From that moment on, he disappeared from the world. Ion Gusan's departure from Romania did not close the case. It made it more dangerous. As investigators reviewed what they had gathered, they recognized a troubling common thread. Many suspected activities did not stop at a single country. Money flows passed through multiple banking systems. Smuggling routes crossed borders. Names appearing in Romanian case files matched investigations underway elsewhere. That was the point at which the case could no longer be handled as an internal matter. In France, prosecutors opened a separate case related to activities believed to be organized and transnational in nature. Evidence assembled from multiple sources pointed to a shared coordinating structure, with Ion Gusan appearing at its center. When he failed to appear in court, the trial proceeded, and a 10-year prison sentence was handed down in absentia. This was a pivotal turning point. From that moment on, Ion Gusan was no longer a subject of investigation for Romania alone. He became a European-wide concern, forcing law enforcement agencies to coordinate, share data, and monitor at an international level. But files can be opened, and warrants can be signed. To catch a man like Gusan, paperwork alone is not enough. After international arrest warrants were activated, Ion Gusan disappeared from the radar. No images, no statements, no signs of where he might be. For investigators, this was not panic, but the mark of someone who understood very well how the system works. For 3 years, Gusan existed in a way almost opposite to the image of a crime boss. No display of wealth, no appearances in public spaces of power, no traces of a lavish lifestyle. His presence, if it existed at all, was designed to blend completely into the gray background of everyday life. The search became especially difficult not only because of that caution, but because of systemic barriers. Extradition laws differ between countries. Borders are open, but jurisdictions are not. And time, the most dangerous ally of those who know how to wait, caused leads to grow cold. Throughout that period, many believed Gusan was hiding in remote places, beyond the reach of European authorities. A reasonable assumption, but a wrong one. Because the truth was that Ion Gusan was not hiding on the edge of the world. He was in London, one of the busiest cities, one of the most heavily monitored, and also one of the places where a person can become most invisible if they know how to live normally enough. And it was precisely that calm, prolonged for too long, that ultimately exposed him. After nearly 3 years of disappearance, Ion Gusan was no longer a drifting shadow. Prolonged surveillance showed that he had settled in one place, long enough to form routines, and that very stability became his weakness. In the final weeks of January, Gusan's movements began to repeat. The same area, the same time frame. No rushing, no avoidance. A rhythm of life so ordinary it became dangerous. For British police, this was a clear sign that the silent game had reached its limit. On February 1st, 2026, the decision was made. There was no loud raid, no approach at his place of residence. The plan was designed to minimize risk to an absolute degree, both for law enforcement and for those nearby. The option chosen was a vehicle stop at a moment when every variable was under control. In the middle of London, a car was stopped. It was not a chase, but a precisely calculated hard stop. Officers approached in formation, step by step. No haste, no hesitation. The city continued to move, almost unaware that this moment was bringing a years-long manhunt to a close. There was no gunfire, no pursuit, no resistance. The car door opened. The man stepped out, slowly and calmly, as if he had been preparing for this moment for a long time. For the first time in 3 years, the name that had existed only in confidential files stood under the public light of London. Ion Gusan had been arrested. But those who understand the system know one thing. Being arrested does not mean the game is over. After being arrested in London, Ion Gusan did not leave the United Kingdom immediately. He was held under legal procedure while authorities prepared for the next step, a battle no longer fought on the streets, but in the courtroom. An extradition request from France was activated on the basis of the 10-year prison sentence previously handed down in absentia. But for figures like Gusan, accepting extradition is rarely the first option. Instead, he has challenged the request, using every legal right available within the British system. This is not unusual. For transnational crime bosses, time is an asset. Every appeal, every review hearing, every additional procedure can prolong the process, sometimes long enough to fundamentally change the legal landscape. It is a familiar chess match, where patience is as important as argument, or as of now, the outcome remains undecided. British courts have not yet issued a final ruling on whether Ion Gusan will be extradited or allowed to remain in the UK to pursue further legal proceedings. But regardless of the result, one thing is certain. The anonymous life Gusan maintained for 3 years has come to an end, and every step he takes from now on unfolds under public scrutiny. For many years, Ion Gusan existed as a name without form, an invisible crime boss, coordinating from the shadows, rarely seen and leaving almost no trace. His power lay in his ability to disappear, and in the belief that silence, sustained long enough, would allow everything to pass. But then, that moment came. Not through violence, not through chaos, but through a pair of handcuffs in the middle of London. A quiet ending to a journey that once seemed untouchable. This story reminds us of one simple but difficult truth. The law can be slow, constrained by borders, procedures, and time. But it does not forget. Traces, no matter how faint, still exist, and sooner or later they lead someone back into the light. Ion Gusan once believed he had left no traces, but it was those very traces that led police to London. If you are interested in stories like this, where power, silence, and the law collide, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next case files.